Good morning. Today is the 24th of Cheshvan, the 8th of November. We're looking at the fourth reading of Parashat Chayei. The fourth reading is, in a certain sense, the aftermath of Eliezer's mission. And after everything happened and he found Rebekah, he is taken to Betuel, her father's household, and there he meets Betuel, her father, and Laban, her brother. And they want to feed him, they want to get him comfortable, and he says, no, my mission is to finish this. And so I have to tell you what happened, and I have to impress upon you how important my mission is. And he proceeds to retell them basically everything that we just read in the third reading. So it's almost word for word, it's almost verbatim. And this is one of the big mysteries of the Torah which you have to remember, when the Torah was written, every single letter that had to go on a scroll. Today also it's handwritten, but it's easy for us to get scrolls. We make scrolls by the kilometer almost. Not quite, but it's not so hard to get scrolls, it's not so hard to get the ink, it's not hard to get the feathers. And people are able to dedicate their entire lives to just writing scrolls of Torah. But imagine that back then, 3,300 years ago, you had to repeat almost word for word the same words twice, the same story. So the sages are very inspired by this and surprised by it, and they say that the words of the servants of the patriarchs are more important than the speech, the regular speech of the children, meaning of the generations that came after the generation. We don't find anything like this in the following books of the Torah, so the following generations didn't have this. So the servant of Abraham is given more of a say than even the children of the children of the patriarchs. What does this actually mean? What's going on here? At the end, the very end of the fourth reading, we find this verse that after Laban and Betuel had heard everything that Eliezer had to say, we're looking at chapter 24, verse 50. It says, Laban and Betuel answered. They said, this has all clearly been decreed from God. Meaning he comes and tells them the whole story. He tells them why he thinks that Rebekah is the right match for Isaac. And everything that he encountered, that he came the same day, he was able to make it the same day. He made this, call it condition, the girl who goes down to the well and offers to water my camels, all my camels, and then first of all offers me water and then offers water to all my camels. She's the match. And this is exactly what happened with Rebekah. And the sages say they were forced to admit, because as much as they were from Abraham's family, they were not of the same philosophy at all. They didn't believe in divine providence. So here they were forced to believe this was definitely decreed by God, that this is a sign that this is something divine that happened here. What's going on? What is this? In a very, very interesting, one of the first classes that I actually wrote down in English, I believe, from Rav Ginsburg, from a little bit over 20 years ago, he taught about telepathy. And a very, very complex class. I remember coming back home, it was in Beersheba. We came back very late at night, and I stayed up with my wife half the night telling her the whole class so that I wouldn't forget it. And then I wrote it the next day. It's a very complex topic. I'm not going to get into all of it, but just one thing that comes from it. And it is that Eliezer was basically setting up what we call today telepathy. And telepathy really means being able to impress upon someone else my thoughts. Meaning I can share my thoughts with my speech, But for them to have to admit to this, and this was against their beliefs, the fact that they were forced to admit, as it were, as the sages say, this teaches us that Eliezer did something very special here. He was actually able to convert them to his point of view. That's a form of telepathy. There's a lot more than that, but really what it means to say is that it's not just that he expressed what he had gone through. He actually was able to impress upon them his thoughts. That is a form of telepathy. A lot of people think about telepathy as being able to read thoughts. That's something a little bit different. Telepathy here means that a person has an opinion, and through his words, those who listen to him are impressed by it. How does this happen? So the short version of it is, it depends on what we call character. Or, if we just look at these three words, this was decreed by God. Me'Hashem yatsa davar. These three words together equal 378. And 378 is the value of Chashmal, the mysterious word of the Torah in the divine chariot that Ezekiel sees, which is translated as the electrum, and it became the modern Hebrew word for electricity. But in Kabbalah, it mostly means malbush. Malbush means a garment. What kind of garment? Not the clothing that we wear, but rather the garment that surrounds our soul. And what is that garment? In easy terms, if we needed to translate it into common language, it's what we call our character. Meaning that a person has a sense of self that is healthy, that is robust, that is steadfast. Character is what helps us overcome adversity from our environment. Now, there's a lot to be said about character, what it means, but notice that this is the servant of Abraham. Why was he a servant? Because he wanted to move, and so the sages say that he was actually Canaan himself, the famous Canaan, the son of Ham, who was cursed by Noach to be a slave. And so Eliezer was the first slave. The curse was that since you, really, and we need to understand this about Ham, since you had no character yourself, you didn't do as your brothers did, which was just not to shame me, but rather to walk backwards and put the covering over me and not to look at me naked. Since you didn't have the character, the strength of character to do that, then you will have to be a servant. The real purpose of being in servitude is to learn character. That is the real purpose in the Torah. It's not about serving someone. It's about a person, usually, who is sold into indentured servitude because he lacks moral character. He was caught as a thief and has nothing to pay back from, or any other kind of bankruptcy, which leaves him in a state where the only thing he can do is accept servitude, indentured servitude for 6 years at the most. But the point is that he goes to become the indentured servant of a man, of a respectful person who can teach him about character, something that he's lacking. And so what Eliezer does here is, as the servant of Abraham, and he keeps repeating this. We mentioned this yesterday. He keeps saying, I am the servant of Abraham. I'm the servant of Abraham. He never mentions his name. Because for him, working under Abraham was fulfilling Noach's curse, in the sense not of curse, but rather as an instruction, that this was the way that he would learn and receive character from Abraham. And indeed, Abraham says to him, now that you've fulfilled your mission, you've left the realm of being cursed, and you are now blessed. A man of character, a woman of character, is someone who can bless others. That's how we met Abraham 2 weeks ago, that those who you bless will be blessed. Where does the character come from? It comes from moral stance. It comes from moral strength. And that is something that Abraham had from the beginning. That was the thing he developed the most, his moral character. What was his moral character about? About, first of all, not taking anything that doesn't belong to him. And we saw there was some problems with this. It wasn't that this was all great. There were some questions about it. And then we tried to answer them 2 weeks ago in different ways. But the point was that there cannot be true character through paganism. That was what Abraham taught the world. Because paganism leads to what we call moral relativism. It leads to terrible things such as human sacrifice. Abraham had to contend with that at the end of last week's Parsha. We didn't give an answer to that, I believe. We will need to give an answer. We will need to talk about that at some point, how Abraham could have even thought that this was possible, and why this was a test of faith. Because obviously God is against human sacrifice, there's no question. But moral relativism of paganism does not allow moral character to be developed. Because anything that you say, someone else has a different God who says otherwise, and then they come and say, well, my God says differently. The world, in a sense, today is in a state of moral relativism. That's exactly where we are now. We see it every single day now. There is no difference between good and evil. It's not that there's no difference. It's that many people are lost. They don't understand. The reason that they don't understand this is really because you can only develop moral character if you face moral questions your whole life. And really that is the number one reason why, well, I don't want to give points here, but it's one of the most important reasons why a person has to lead a life that has do and do not. Why a person has to have a recognition that there are certain things that I don't do and certain things that I do. And I have to overcome whatever a craving I have to do that which is considered wrong again. But that is what develops the character. And that is what Eliezer learned in Abraham's household. I want to finish one more minute by saying something about how Eliezer did this, and to encourage you to hear the mini course that I gave last Sunday. Eliezer does this. This is one of the most beautiful examples of what we call envisioning what one wants and then seeing it happen. Seeing it happen here was Eliezer, first of all, envisioning the type of girl that he wanted, that he thought was suitable, envisioning all of it, seeing it happen in front of him, and then eventually saying it in such a way that because of his character, it became like a decree from above for those around him, even those who didn't believe in divine providence. That is the power of character. That is the power of envisioning what one believes in. And one more beautiful observation, you'll have to look at this in the wonders, but the three words that they say, Me'Hashem yatzah davar, this was decreed by God. There is something called finite differences in mathematics. We're not going to get into how you do this, but the base of those three numbers, it's called the base, is 75, the value of confidence. And we saw this on Sunday, that Abraham set out for the land of Israel at the age of 75. It's when he was able to have enough character to transform his confidence into reality. And telepathy is just one of the ways in which this occurs and can occur for everyone in everyday life. Thanks for joining. Hope to see you tomorrow.